Evan Murphy was the most distinguished and handsome heir of the Murphy family in the upscale neighborhood. Someone completely out of my league. Until one day, he suddenly grabbed my sleeve. Eyes bloodshot. There's still time. We haven't finalized the divorce this lifetime. Let's start over. I paused mid-bite of my barbecue ribs. Blinking. But I never planned to marry you? Chapter 1. Evan. Flawless jade. Utterly tantalizing. The dream husband every eligible young woman coveted, including my elder sister Emily. He'll become the most powerful statesman of our generation, she declared. I must secure him. Yet Evan remained aloof. His marble-perfect features never betraying emotion. Everything changed when Emily fell into the lake. She surfaced screaming, then slapped me hard across the face. You pathetic romantic. Swear you'll never love Evan. Never marry him. I stared, cheek stinging. Since when did she project her own obsession onto me? Besides, the Murphys only married into royalty or political dynasties. Before I could respond, our stepmother dragged Emily away by the hair. Have you lost your mind? Your sister's still unmarried. Emily suddenly laughed hysterically, dripping lake water as she crushed me in a desperate embrace. Praise the heavens! Pearl's still free. She hauled us into the parlor, dismissing all servants. After 3 fortifying breaths, Emily revealed her madness. I've been reborn. In her previous life, I'd tripped at a banquet straight into Evan's arms. We'd spun like dancers before crashing to the floor, me straddling his waist. Neither of us blushed. But Mrs. Murphy saw potential. My voluptuous figure, generous hips, childbearing pelvis appealed to their single-heir dynasty. 7 years into our marriage, Evan handed me divorce papers. We share no passion. I nodded at Emily's story. Makes sense. Pearl Chen and Evan seemed like the least compatible couple. Stepmother abruptly asked, Does Pearl have any children? Emily paused before replying. Yes. 3. All left with the Murphys. My braised pork knuckle slipped from my fingers in shock, staining Emily's new skirt with grease and sauce. Rather than scolding me, Emily tenderly cradled my round face. 3 disappointments. Not worth mentioning. Under the stern gazes of stepmother and Emily, I knelt and vowed in this lifetime, I'd sooner marry a pig than Evan. I'd rather face menopause than bear disappointments. 4 months afterward, Emily kept me close, avoiding any event Evan might attend. Unnecessary precautions. Evan and I existed in separate worlds. The Murphy heir, the Emperor's confidant, Heaven's favorite, while I, the Clark family's half-legitimate daughter, plain-faced, lazy, perpetually snacking. At past banquets, he'd basked in adoration while I lingered in shadows. Besides, 7 years he'd claimed no affection. Even if we met now. What of it? Emily said cryptically. You're too young to understand. He might not love you. But that didn't stop him from betting you 7 years. Her nostrils flared with growing disdain. If he's also reborn, he might torment you again. Rebirth wasn't like gaining weight, you can't choose it. Nor does everyone get it. I scoffed at the notion. When encountering former social rivals, Emily unexpectedly greeted them warmly. After they left, she sighed. In my long dream, they all suffered tragic fates. But her expression darkened upon hearing the Murphy cousins sent their daughter. The down-and-out Southern family shamelessly shipped their marriageable girl to the capital. Sam arrived delicate yet straight-backed, fragile dignity making her pitiable. Mrs. Murphy kindly took her in. Emily rolled her eyes but stayed silent. I didn't care to ask. Slow spring days. Warm spring scenery. Good times passed swiftly. The day my sister Emily had been dreading finally arrived, the Queen Mother's birthday banquet. A silk ribbon was tied around my waist. the other end clutched tightly in Emily's hand. She kept glancing at the water clock, calculating the exact moment from our previous life when Pearl and Evan had accidentally collided. After what felt like eternity, she exhaled in relief. The critical time window had passed. Finally! I gasped, the constricting ribbon around my midsection finally loosening. I hurried toward the restroom, only to freeze at the corridor's turning. There stood a man with jade-like refinement, so strikingly handsome it stole one's breath. Our eyes met briefly, and I saw his pupils constrict in recognition as I passed by. Pearl. His voice halted me. Do you hate me so much that you won't even look at me? I turned in confusion, meeting the gaze of this elegant stranger. His brows knitted as he continued. Why pretend? You've deliberately avoided every chance encounter, determined not to repeat our past life's entanglement. Yet here we are. The pieces clicked. So this was Evan. Celestial beauty incarnate. Emily had it backwards. It wasn't him who'd kept me for 7 years, but I who'd claimed him. His voice turned glacial when I remained silent. Am I such a plague to you? Not even worth words? His knuckles whitened around a hidden object, sharp eyes boring into me with displeasure. Truth was, I desperately needed the bathroom. Plus Emily would murder me for speaking to him. I bolted. Pearl. His voice followed me down the corridor. However, I wronged you in our marriage. Must we be strangers now? The plaintive note in his usually composed tone puzzled me. What game was this former husband playing? Back at the banquet, I confessed the encounter to Emily. She crushed her wine cup, murderous glare piercing through the partition separating male and female guests. Beyond the silk curtain, Evan's white-robed silhouette sat conspicuously close. I kept my head down, mechanically stuffing delicacies into my mouth as the atmosphere thickened. After several rounds of toasts, a latecomer drifted in like willow tendrils in breeze. Every male head turned as the delicate beauty curtsied. Her introduction rippled through the hall. Sam, cousin from the Murphy family. She was extremely eloquent and quickly won the praise of several noblewomen. They applauded her as a talented scholar. Sam modestly replied, when it comes to scholarship, I'm not even 1/10,000th as accomplished as my cousin Evan. I haven't seen cousin Evan these past few days. Back in Jiangnan, I heard cousin Evan was an extraordinary scholar, a rare gem among men. I've long admired him. If only I could meet him. Her clear voice carried perfect cadence. Behind the curtain, the figure in white paused mid-sip from his wine cup. Clearly, these words reached Evan's ears. Emily snorted disdainfully. What an act. A sudden realization struck me. Could she be the reason Evan and I divorced? This suspicion grew stronger when Evan intercepted Emily and me. He demanded, Pearl, did you give Sam any trouble just now? I already told you. She had nothing to do with. Before I could speak, Emily pulled me behind her. Her acting was flawless. Her face displayed equal parts confusion, anger, maternal protectiveness, and a dash of fear. Mr. Murphy, how dare you address my sister so familiarly by her given name? My sister is unmarried. What if this damages her reputation? Evan froze. In his urgency, he'd forgotten this wasn't their previous life. His gaze swept over my face repeatedly, finding nothing but bewilderment that seemed to ask, what's wrong with this lunatic? You should maintain proper decorum, Mr. Murphy. With that, Emily tried to drag me away. Evan instinctively reached to grab my sleeve. I leaped 3 yards backward, scrambling to Emily's other side like a chick sheltering behind a mother hen. Evan's face went stony. Do you detest my touch that much? I nodded firmly without hesitation. Evan glowered. Then these 7 years sharing my bed must have been pure torment for you. Before the words finished echoing, Emily slapped him across the face. Outrageous! Keep slandering my sister like this, Evan. And I'll drag you to court. Evan's head snapped sideways. Emily had clearly held nothing back. Before Evan could recover, Emily and I made our escape. After this incident, Evan seemed convinced I hadn't been reborn. He sent messengers with apologies and gifts, claiming he'd been drunk and confused that day. The peace offering included a jade bracelet worth thousands in gold. Typical of the Murphy family heir, Evan's generosity knew limits. Emily sneered. How vulgar. In our past life, you bore him 3 sons and never received so much as a hairpin. He claimed as Mrs. Murphy you could request any jewelry from the family stewards. Then showered that cousin Sam with gifts. Now he puts on this charade. I had the bracelet pawned for silver to rid myself of the bad luck. A few days later, Evan requested to meet again, claiming he wanted to apologize in person. I naturally declined. Emily stated, "We've accepted your gifts, Mr. Murphy, but a face-to-face apology is unnecessary. Let's consider this matter closed." Yet Evan remained persistent, perhaps wanting to confirm whether I'd truly been reborn. When he came calling again, Emily barred him at the gate. Through the closed doors, he pleaded, "Miss Pearl, I sincerely wish to make amends. Would you grant me an audience?" Emily raised her voice, "Mr. Murphy, my sister already has a sweetheart and no desire to meet you. Continued visits will only tarnish her reputation." The sudden silence beyond the gates was deafening. To convince him, Emily added, "Her suitor will soon come to propose formally. You'd best leave now." After a long pause, Evan finally departed with parting words, "No need for such excuses. If Miss Pearl refuses to see me, so be it. The debt I owe you remains, should you ever need assistance. I'll spare no effort." This debt referred not to recent offenses, but to those 7 years from our past life. True to his word, Evan never reappeared afterward. Still uneasy, Emily dragged our mother into arranging meetings with potential suitors for me. Meanwhile, tea-house gossip buzzed about Evan and Sam, how he'd rescued her from some thugs, how she'd tearfully gifted him poetry, how they'd since become inseparable at social gatherings. As for me, dozens of matchmaking meetings yielded no prospects. When Emily pressed about my standards, I shrugged, none compared to braised pork knuckles. After days of contemplation, Emily sent messengers south to find a scholar named Brandon. "He won't come to the capital for exams until years later," she explained. "When you lived alone after your divorce, he became your kind neighbor, though his family lacks status." I humored her with disinterested nods, envisioning some penniless bookworm. Then they brought him to the lakeside pavilion. The man stood 9 feet tall in a sleeveless tunic, corded muscles rippling beneath sun-bronzed skin. His barrel chest tapered to a wasp waist, white teeth gleaming in a bashful grin as I gaped. Emily dropped her bombshell with practiced nonchalance, national martial arts champion. Left alone with this human mountain, I sat frozen as the summer breeze carried her parting words. Between us, the silence grew thick enough to slice. After a long silence, Brandon pointed at the empty plate and stammered, "Miss Pearl, you're really good at eating. Impressive." It was the first time anyone had complimented me like that. I blushed and smiled shyly. "Thank you. I think so too." My hand awkwardly retreated when I found no pastries left. I sipped tea, fidgeted with my bracelet, then adjusted my hairpin. Suddenly, a pearl from my hairpin plopped into the lake. Before I could react, Brandon dove in with a cannonball splash that drenched my face. As maids scrambled for help, I leaned over the water's edge calling Brandon. "Brandon!" Moments later, a dripping hand gripped the stone bank. With a dramatic splash, Brandon surged from the water like a black carp, nearly colliding with me. His soaked shirt hung open, water tracing his sharp jawline before disappearing into the valleys between his sculpted chest and washboard abs. Heat flooded my cheeks. You didn't have to. I've got other hairpins. Brandon grinned like an eager golden retriever, revealing the pearl in his palm. For you. My brain short-circuited as I stared. Somehow, he looked more tempting than my favorite barbecue ribs. Time froze. Maids tactfully lingered in the distance. That's when Evan appeared. Thunder jolted Evan awake. Clutching his chest, he listened to the rain while fragments of his dream lingered, memories of his past life where he demanded divorce. Pearl hadn't protested. He'd felt relief until the next morning. His mother, Mrs. Murphy, refused his visit. Still angry. She'd adored her daughter-in-law. Sam summoned him later. Cheeks flushed. Lashes fluttering with uncharacteristic coyness. Though momentarily stirred, Evan claimed work obligations. They were friends. He'd told Pearl during the divorce. Confidants. Nothing improper. Emily Clark, Pearl Chen's legitimate sister, specially wrote a letter to scold her and Xianxia. When the servant delivered the letter to her, she opened it and glanced. Filled with expletives. The handwriting was surprisingly vigorous, completely unlike what someone chronically ill could produce. The second month after the divorce, Pearl still hadn't appeared. Evan had grown accustomed to this new normal. Except when changing clothes. He instinctively called out Pearl. No one answered. Of course. The maids didn't dare respond. The second year of separation. Evan suddenly remembered Pearl again. This marked the 5th time he'd thought of her this month. Not excessive. Except the month had only begun 2 days prior. The dishes on the table were insipidly bland. These were his dietary preferences. Unlike Pearl, who'd craved rich meats. Not just eating habits, countless differences proved they'd never been compatible. Complete opposites. He frowned at the spread. Why isn't there any braised pork knuckle? Pearl would go hungry with this. The words slipped out before he registered their implication. Precisely then, a servant announced Sam requested audience. Evan blurted, "What does she want?" The servant looked puzzled. Previously, the cousin always gained immediate entry without explanation. "Shall I inquire?" "Sir? Don't bother. Send her away. I'm occupied." These days, Sam visited constantly under flimsy pretenses, discussing poetry or fussing over his winter attire. Offering literary companionship and tender care. If he remarried, it should be to such refined woman. Not someone like Pearl. He believed this when proposing divorce. Still believed it now. While leaving, he overheard gossiping servants that young widow from East Street got remarried. Evan froze. How could widows remarry? He'd never considered Pearl might take another husband. That night, he finally dispatched someone to investigate Pearl's whereabouts. The returning servant reported Miss Chen no longer resides in Wangjing. The Clark family's eldest daughter who'd long convalesced in Qingzhou passed 3 months prior. The second young mistress went to handle funeral arrangements. Neighbors say she left accompanied, with no plans to return. Evan snapped his writing brush. Not returning? He sat through dawn's first light, grappling with incomprehension. How could Pearl abandon everything so ruthlessly? Heartless. Not even coming to see him for so long. Heartless enough to abandon their 3 sons. Just like that, she left with another man. No matter how much she loathed him, she was still the children's mother. She shouldn't have been so cold. It was all a nightmare. Thankfully just a dream of their past life. He wouldn't hold Pearl back anymore. Pearl wouldn't hate him either. He still believed she must be reborn like him. If not, how could she repeatedly avoid crossing paths with him? Of course, he'd been avoiding her too. With their past life bond, they might not become spouses but could be friends. Or confidants. Like how he and Sam had been in that dream. The thought made him smile. Pearl and confidant seemed incompatible. Yet he craved those moments, her munching snacks while quietly listening to him. Being her close friend might be nice. But why did he keep wanting to seek her out? Banana leaves rustled. Drip drop. Rain fell till dawn. At daybreak, he decided to find Pearl. The blush hadn't faded from my cheeks. When Emily saw Brandon, fury flashed in her eyes. When I asked for divorce in our past life, she accused, voice trembling with resentment. You agreed without hesitation. Had you already found someone else? Emily's eyes reddened as if nursing heartbreak. But my own sister had told me he was the one who fell for another. Emily married me without affection. He despised my lack of artistic talents, my inability to discuss poetry. Those first 2 years, our intimacy felt like a battlefield for him, tense and joyless. Later, he either grew accustomed or discovered its appeal. We ended up with 3 sons. Sam differed entirely. She seemed tailor-made as his wife, fulfilling his every expectation. My sister claimed I'd loved Emily desperately. But when I first saw Emily and Sam drinking wine under the moonlight, I sensed something wrong. Emily never explained. First time became second, third, countless times. Sometimes at plum gardens, sometimes poetry clubs, always cultured settings. They were confidants, exchanging knowing smiles. Perhaps they hadn't crossed the line yet. That's why Emily demanded divorce with clear conscience. I've done nothing wrong, he insisted. Sam hasn't wronged you either. We're innocent. I simply realized I never loved you. My 3 sons once said that Aunt Sam carried herself more like the matriarch of a prestigious family, while I remained hopelessly unsuited for high society. Thus, I signed the divorce papers. On the day I left the Murphy estate, not a single soul came to bid me farewell. Hearing this now shocks me. I can't fathom how I ever fell for someone like Evan. Does affection truly grow from physical intimacy? Then I'll be damned if I let him touch me again this time. At this moment, Evan tries to speak, but I grab Brandon's arm and bolt. Emily had warned me never to interact with Evan without her supervision. With her absent, I've no business entertaining him. Brandon, despite his hulking frame, follows obediently without question. As we run, he hoists me onto his shoulders. Wherever I point, he charges like a warhorse. Glancing back, I see Evan standing alone in the distance, an abandoned puppy in human form. Back at the Clark mansion, Emily eyes Brandon appraisingly. What do you think of our Pearl? The dark-skinned giant flushes crimson, his rustic handsomeness oddly endearing. Miss Pearl is extraordinary. Emily nods approvingly, launching into exhaustive interrogation. She confirms his orphan status, clean background, absence of arranged marriages, childhood sweethearts, female cousins, or past loves. I watch in stunned silence as she grills him. Satisfied, Emily declares, I'll fund your education through Pearl's allowance. When you pass the imperial exams, you'll repay her 1,000-fold, whether through silver or other means. She adds meaningfully, that's for you two to decide. Servants present a contract before I can protest, and Brandon signs without hesitation. After he leaves, I finally muster courage. Emily, I never. You forgot to nibble your pork-stuffed flatbread since his arrival. Do I need diagrams? Twisting my handkerchief, I mumble I merely noticed his crisp exterior and robust physique. Like perfectly roasted game. Is this what attraction feels like? Do I appear as tempting as fresh-baked bread to Brandon? Emily exits with exasperated disbelief. I'd assumed the prideful Evan would cease pursuing me after my rejection. Yet he persists like stubborn smoke. Since her rebirth, Emily's priorities shifted dramatically. No more embroidery, account books, or poetry. Life's too short for such trifles, she declares. Stockpiling grain, funding orphanages, and sponsoring merchant caravans seeking rare medicinal herbs. Father initially objected, But after lengthy discussions with Emily and our stepmother, he withdrew his objections. Regarding Emily's marriage prospects, she'd previously wed the Wang heir who later became third-rank official. Just as predicted, the Wangs came courting again as in her past life. Peeking through the screen, I saw her former suitor, handsome, dignified, and learned. Yet this time, Emily refused. Father politely declined, claiming he wished to keep his eldest daughter home a while longer. The Wang heir departed, visibly perplexed. Although my sister Emily had taken a liking to Evan before, she understood the wisdom of not putting all eggs in one basket. Evan was like the moon in the sky, beautiful but ultimately unattainable. The young Master Wang became Emily's primary target. Of course, this Mr. Wang wasn't exclusively courting Emily either. When he left, his eyes burned with resentment. The next day, he requested a meeting with Emily. She burned his letter and instructed the servant, "Tell him I have no time for meetings. Mr. Wang is clever enough to understand my meaning." I asked Emily if Mr. Wang had wronged her in their past life. To my surprise, she shook her head. He never mistreated me. He granted me the status of legal wife, waited 5 childless years before taking a concubine, and never let any mistress overshadow me. But, her lips curled bitterly. When I fell ill, he shipped me off to Qingzhou for recovery without hesitation. Taking a second wife? That happened before my carriage even left the city gates. He did nothing wrong, Emily said, her voice hollow. Every decision he made simply served his best interests. Men have always been like this, innately knowing when to make self-serving choices. I ignored her philosophical musings. Zeroing in on the crucial detail, she'd been ill. My own mother died in childbirth, leaving me to be raised under the Clark family matriarch. Rumors claimed my stepmother would ruin me. But I thought if I could lounge through life, wouldn't that be a blessing? Even if I strove harder, I'd only transition from being Mrs. Zhang to Mrs. Li or Mrs. Murphy, always nurturing fruit for others to pluck. Emily had protected me since childhood. With such security, I felt content enough. I buried my face in her sleeve, sobbing dramatically. "Stop that," she scolded. "It's not incurable. Did I ever marry Brandon? You wouldn't know because you died early. Would you?" My unexpected shrewdness left her speechless. Finally, she promised to take better care of her health this lifetime. I wiped my nose on her silk sleeve, glaring accusingly. After extensive coaxing, she took me to the finest restaurant in the capital, then to a jewelry shop. The peony hairpin finally restored my smile. "Do I look pretty?" I turned and froze. Evan stood there in immaculate white linen, jade hairpin glinting, more devastatingly handsome than ever. His eyes lit up with smug recognition. "Pearl," he drawled, "you could dedicate your life to chasing me. But I'll never." I shoulder-checked him mid-sentence. "You're blocking the path." He stumbled but didn't lose his infuriating composure. Emily pulled me aside, shooting him a withering glare. "Mr. Murphy, we have prior engagements." As we walked away, fury bubbled in my chest. Why did this worthless man get to be reborn alongside Emily? Before I realized it, my fist connected with his perfect face. Evan crumpled like a stepped-on moth, shock frozen on his features. His hand landed on the shattered teacup, instantly staining crimson. Yet he seemed oblivious, staring at me in disbelief. "Pearl, how could you strike me?" My next punch answered him. The rage Emily had barely soothed erupted like a bursting boiler. Why should my sister die young while this bastard lived to 80 with 3 brats? My active lifestyle ensured these muscles weren't for show. Pinning Evan beneath me, I pounded flesh until his protests died. The Murphy servants found themselves blocked by Emily and my maids in the chaos. When Emily finally pulled me up, she soothed, Enough now. Mr. Murphy didn't mean harm. I rose, leaving Evan wheezing my name. His pretty face now resembled battered fruit, swollen, bruised, yet perversely appealing. Shame I preferred meteor builds. Pearl, he rasped. This hatred, does it mean you still care? My boot connected with his ribs. We're strangers. Evan blinked up, smirk bleeding through split lips like he saw through my act. Emily studied him coldly. Did you receive my letter from Xianxia? Mr. Murphy? Understanding dawned. The reborn soul was Emily, not me. Finally, he saw I wasn't the wife who'd shared his bed for 7 years, nor the mother of his heirs. Just a woman repulsed by his antics. We left him sitting dumbstruck in the dirt. That night brought strange dreams. In the haze, I became a bride. The wedding sedan swayed toward Murphy Manor. Everyone envied my match to the capital's most eligible bachelor. Even Emily called it fortunate. I felt no joy, only obligation. Refusing would shame the Clark name, ruin Emily's prospects, invite gossip against mother. So I complied. My groom stood haloed in candlelight, the legendary beauty of Wang Jing. Up close, he resembled boiled chicken breast, pale, lean, utterly flavorless. Evan's cold gaze swept over me. This marriage wasn't my choice. You'll have the Murphy title. Nothing more. Nerve input. If this isn't what you want, why not discuss it with your mother? I rolled my eyes and collapsed onto the bed. Evan, standing by the window, seemed momentarily surprised before climbing into bed to sleep beside me. Half asleep, his hand wandered to my waist. You need to produce an heir for the Murphy family soon. First he claims indifference, then immediately wants to make babies? My sister Emily always said I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. She wasn't wrong. I truly couldn't comprehend Evan's logic. Whatever. The deed had to be done. I flipped positions, pinning Evan beneath me. What followed could only be described as, well, like chewing cardboard. His bony frame dug into me. The man proved as unappetizing as boiled chicken breast. When I forced compliance, Evan flushed crimson, clearly wanting to accuse me of impropriety. But this bedroom contained no saints. He sulked for 6 whole months. Thankfully, Mrs. Murphy had chosen well. My fertility proved exceptional. 1 try was all it took. Evan maintained chilly politeness, never making life difficult. I found my days quite pleasant, though others pitted my tragic loss of marital affection. The thaw came unexpectedly. Passing a tavern, I rescued Evan from being alcoholically ambushed. His gratitude took physical form. Thus began my second pregnancy. This time, he played attentive expectant father while cultivating a poetic companionship with Sam right under my nose. I didn't mind catching their first literary tryst. I actually felt apologetic for interrupting. My hasty retreat somehow convinced Evan I harbored jealousy. As Lady of Murphy Manor, you should demonstrate magnanimity, he pontificated. Sam and I share pure camaraderie. Your rudeness demands reparation. His compensatory gifts to Sam incurred Mrs. Murphy's wrath. Evan took his scolding out on me that night through vigorous mattress diplomacy. Baffling whether rewarding or punishing, his tool of choice remained the same. Was this some golden-spiked club of marital duty? Life continued. Evan proved clingy yet irritable, emotionally sensitive as our 3 children who competed endlessly for his approval. Any attempted parenting from me got overruled by both him and Mrs. Murphy. The Murphy legacy thrived in drama if nothing else. It didn't matter. After all, the 3 of them were Murphys. Even without me, plenty could teach them. I thought these days would last until my dying breath. But as Sam grew closer to Evan, everything changed. Evan finally seemed determined to divorce me, the wife he'd never wanted from the start. What bliss! Like being pardoned after 30 years in prison. That very day, I devoured 30 braised pork knuckles. Neighboring diners gaped. A man approached, smiling. "Miss, do you remember me? That pork knuckle you gave saved me from starvation during my imperial exams journey. I slept till noon. Upon waking, I meticulously reconstructed the dream." Evan was truly insufferable. Brandon was utterly delicious. Brandon excelled. He passed the military exams 2 years early. On his coronation as martial arts champion, he dodged the ambush-style marriage proposals and came to our estate. My father glanced at me behind the screen. "This depends on Pearl's wishes." I nodded frantically. Emily yanked me into view. Brandon flushed crimson. Him sun-bronzed and blushing. Me pale and flushed, quite the pair. Walking him out, I secretly grasped his hand. So warm. Like freshly baked pie. I stealthily patted his butt. So firm. Turkey Tail had nothing on this. Before hiding my leer, I met someone's gaze. Evan stood disheveled. Crown askew. Panting. "Pearl, what are you doing?" Brandon interjected. "Not your business whose but gets touched." He repositioned my retreating hand on his backside. Mortified, I burned scarlet. Evan trembled. "Have you truly stopped loving me? How could you?" Ignoring him, I bid Brandon farewell and slammed the gate on Evan's devastated face. That night, Evan climbed over the wall. The impeccably groomed heir of the Murphy family. Actually scaling walls? The moonlight revealed his figure as he stared intently at me. The silver orb hung high in the sky, its glow chilling the night breeze. I should have realized sooner. Evan's voice trembled. "Pearl, you forgot me. That's why you never came looking for me all this time." His fingers brushed against a fresh bruise on his jaw. "You forgot me. So you thought nothing of flaunting other men and hitting me this hard." I blinked. Chicken wing forgotten in my hand. My quilt still concealed the braised pork trotter I'd hidden earlier when I mistook his footsteps for Emily's coming to scold me for midnight snacks. "Perhaps it's better this way," Evan continued hoarsely. "If you remembered our past life, you'd resent me. Let's start anew." Moonlight caught the suspicious glimmer in his eyes as he stepped closer. "This time, we'll do everything right. I'll court you properly. We'll remarry. And I swear we'll never divorce again." I scratched my head. I wasn't planning to marry you." The color drained from his face. "I truly don't like you," I added gently. His knuckles whitened against the courtyard wall. "Impossible," he rasped. "In our previous life, you loved me deeply. We shared poetry by candlelight. Raised 3 sons. Then why did we divorce?" I interrupted. Evan froze. "I misunderstood marital harmony," he finally admitted. "I thought a wife needed scholarly accomplishments to match her husband. Later I realized a woman's true virtue lies in tending her household." I barely suppressed a snort. He'd been the one constantly seeking me out. Not the other way around. "Has Emily poisoned you against me?" he demanded. When I remained silent, I suddenly shouted, "Help! There's a pervert!" The Murphy heir's aristocratic composure shattered as servants came running. No pampered gentleman could outrun trained staff. They pinned him face down in the gravel path. The Murphy family sent lavish apologies, all intercepted by Emily. "I'll safeguard these," my elder sister declared, eyeing Brandon across the courtyard. "If they become your dowry, that gold digger would claim half after marriage." I nodded vacantly while nibbling melon seeds. Emily sighed, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. "A simple soul like yours needs a clever partner to navigate high society. Evan would have eaten you alive." Her gaze hardened. "Good riddance," I said. "Brandon doesn't have many schemes either." Emily smiled without contradicting me. Later, I never saw Evan again. Rumor had it his mother had confined him to house arrest. Surprisingly, Sam came looking for me instead. She still had that delicate yet resilient charm, her oval face appearing 2 sizes smaller than mine. "Miss Pearl, I only want to exchange a few words with you." I agreed. Emily had warned me against engaging with Evan, but said nothing about Sam. She contentedly led me to a tea house. While I cracked sunflower seeds, she sipped tea. As I nibbled on mung bean cakes, she sipped tea. When I popped grapes into my mouth, she kept sipping tea. No wonder some people stayed so thin. "Miss Pearl, you're actually quite clever," Sam began, her porcelain cup trembling slightly. "You must realize my cousin's interest in women like you is fleeting. Should you yield, he'd soon grow bored and realize you're not what he truly desires, someone cultured who shares his literary passions." My astonished expression seemed to startle her. The renowned prodigy actually fumbled her next words. "Ahem. My purpose here is, well, I simply want you to understand this clearly. Don't throw yourself into this doomed affair, lest you face disgraceful divorce years later." I swallowed my pastry, pondering. "Do you want to marry Evan yourself?" My bluntness froze her momentarily. If Evan's so inconstant, why assume he'd behave differently with another type of woman? I pressed, crumbs dusting my lips. Also, shouldn't cousins refrain from meddling in each other's marriages? She wasn't even Evan's wife. Yet here she stood lecturing me like some jealous mistress guarding her territory. Suddenly it clicked. "Unless you're the Murphy's chosen. Stop this nonsense." Sam's cup clattered against the saucer. "Our relationship is purely proper. I'm merely offering friendly advice." I hummed non-committally, desperately trying to recall my prophetic dream about Sam's fate. Nothing surfaced. In my previous life, Brandon and I had settled in Qingzhou where Emily once lived. Years later, a yellowed letter arrived from the capital in Evan's handwriting. He wrote about rainy nights making him nostalgic, wanting to visit but being detained by official duties. Southern water bandits required suppression first. Had I remained, he mused, I'd have tearfully packed provisions for his journey. His flowery prose made Brandon sulk for days, taking his jealousy out on me through vigorous nocturnal activities. Evan's mother included a note. This letter had languished unsent until his death. The realization struck like winter sleet when the ink dried. Evan had already perished. I smacked my forehead as sudden clarity struck me. So only those who die young get to be reborn. Then Evan must have married someone else. Evan's face darkened as he stood to leave. After exiting the tea house, we coincidentally met again by the restrooms. She blushed, appearing somewhat flustered. I let out a hearty burp. 14. The ending. On my wedding day to Brandon, Emily gifted me 18 handsome servants. Since Brandon was becoming a live-in son-in-law, married life didn't change much except I ate more frequently. Let's just say my energy expenditure had significantly increased. Surprisingly, Brandon didn't want us to have children. He said my birth mother died delivering me, and he couldn't risk it. I thumped my chest confidently, declaring my body was built for childbearing. Through gritted teeth, he demanded how I could be so certain. I've birthed 3 in my dreams, I revealed. Quantity over quality. When Brandon asked who fathered these dream children, I promptly clammed up. Yet he somehow pieced it together. Perhaps he was slightly smarter than I'd estimated, a theory proven repeatedly over the years as his political career skyrocketed beyond his previous life's achievements. When critics whispered, "Why remain a live-in husband when you're already general? Reclaim your family name," Brandon responded by placing his broadsword at a gossip's bedside that very night. "Disturb my wife's peace again," he warned, "and your head becomes my apology gift." The rumors ceased immediately. Meanwhile, Emily had become a renowned business magnate, traveling freely and living her ideal life. The childbirth complications that ruined her health in our past existence never materialized this time. As for Evan, he voluntarily transferred to Qingzhou. Before departing, he came to see me during a gentle rainfall. Standing beneath distant eaves, he watched me silently for ages before confessing, "I died 3 years after our divorce last lifetime. Took on river pirates nearing Qingzhou, died by the riverbank outside the city walls, never saw you." I already knew. His mother, Mrs. Murphy, had visited me earlier. Her son's drastic behavioral changes made her investigate until she uncovered our rebirth circumstances. Arrogant men always stumble in matters of the heart, she'd mused. Though I never imagined he'd fall this hard. I didn't consider it tragic at all. There are plenty of people worse off than him. He just couldn't accept that I left without looking back. The clouds gather and disperse. Seasons came and went as Brandon and I went our separate ways. We never heard from Evan again,